I've actually found sympathy towards the left for. I think that there's this all-encompassing defense of sometimes behavior that doesn't make sense or that will seem like horrible behavior if you're trying to explain it or justify it in any sort of media setting. And I think that often comes from the left because there's this radical acceptance of brokenness that, the right in some way offers through Christianity, but in the same sense, because the church is imperfect, because humans are very judgmental, and there's also a large component that is not Christian of the right, there is, without a doubt, an extremely judgmental side to the right wing. And people who are very aware or shameful or maybe even grew up in religious communities that have that internal shame are like, I would rather join the side that is going to accept me for all of my brokenness. And not just that, and this is the fundamental problem with the left, is not the acceptance, but the lifting it up as a virtue.
Mm-hmm. Look at indulgence.
Yeah.
I want to address that. Look at Milo. Milo's a gay man.
What?
Milo says that he will no longer.
Does he say he's former gay?
He says he's celibate. He will no longer act upon these things.
Okay.
The left then says Milo claims he's straight. They lie.
Okay.
Milo is in the position where he's engaging in a behavior that the right views as like aberrant, or something like that. And he's decided he wants to be a better person, so he will abstain from these behaviors. The left is the inverse of that. They say they have a depravity or an aberrant behavior, and they demand you accept it so that they stop feeling bad about doing it.
Yeah, and so this goes back to the point that I actually was going to make a moment ago. So I'm glad you said that. When a person is behaving badly and you're not, and they know that you're not, you become a proxy for their conscience.
Yeah.
They're not mad at you. They're mad at themselves.
Agreed.
And they're at war with their conscience. And now they see you, whether you have articulated it or not, making it clear that that behavior is unacceptable. And so now they have to regard you with the same contempt that they do the voice in their head that tells them what they're doing is wrong.
This is the best explanation of original sin, or the easiest way it's ever been articulated for me to understand it, right? That there is something within people that would drive them to depravity or amoral behavior, and everyone has it within them, and we have to actively choose to be better people. That is, there are things that give us gratification and pleasure, but we recognize you shouldn't just act upon all of these things. They could be bad, they could be destructive. The left seems to be saying, especially with the child drag shows where they're saying it's not going to look itself and things like that, you should just stop making them feel bad about it.
Exactly.
But that means they know something they're doing is invoking a negative reaction.
Have you guys ever listened to Gabor Mate? He's an incredible psychologist. He worked on a lot of addiction cases on the East End in Vancouver, Canada. And he says the one common thing that he's found amongst addicts is not, he says it's not actually the addiction that they're struggling with, but it's some sort of painkiller. Yeah. That every vice is a painkiller for something people have been through. And so I think that the world is very broken, and I think there are a lot of people that actually, I think most people start out wanting what conservatives put up as the vision.
Yeah.
They want the family, they want the white picket fence, they want all of that, they want the community, and then something happens in their life that sets it astray, and they begin finding painkillers, coping mechanisms that are vices. And then they look at conservatives shaming them and they say, they're already psychologically in enough trauma, can't get through it. They can't deal with the shame. So they go to the side that accepts them when fundamentally broken people exist in this world. I don't think it's going to be any internet shaming, this or that. It has to be community, real people that go and help them. And it's the internet, the radical acceptance and the radical rejection that is sending people further into the spiraling.
But so what's happening now is, for people like me, disaffected liberals, traditional or classical liberals, you can have views the right doesn't like, but they will sit down with you and have a conversation. Yeah. Dave, it's remarkable how the left recoils at the idea of Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro being friends, because they were like, Ben Shapiro opposes gay marriage and thinks what Dave Rubin is doing is wrong, and Glenn Beck says that Dave Rubin shouldn't have kids, and I'm like, isn't it funny that we all know that Dave Rubin is well aware of that, and the issue is, despite the very serious moral disagreements, there's still an effort between these individuals to be compassionate towards each other and to try and find a way to accept each other or save each other. And the left outright says, if you're not with us, you're against us. So what's the end result? Dave Rubin, who by every basic right should be on the side of the individuals who are saying he can do these things, finds himself on the side of the people who are saying we don't like that he's doing these things because they're still nicer to him. They're still like, the left doesn't seem to get, they can't grasp this. Dave Rubin is a grifter because he's friends with these people. No, these people are friends with him and they're being nice to him despite not liking or agreeing with what he does. The left will tell you you're with us or you're against us. So nobody who has any, like, by all rights, my position on abortion is not conservative, and the left should be trying to win me over and say we accept that you're halfway there. Instead, they tell me to screw off. I'm a conservative, and then Steven Crowder is the one who came to me and said, "I accept your proposal, Tim. We as conservatives will accept restrictions on abortion to a certain degree if that means we save more lives." The left tells me to screw off.
Politics has become about ego. It's like you can't give an inch. You can't give. Well, that's how humans negotiate. That's how they engage with one another. You have to try to understand from their perspective, but no, that's cucked or that's too bigoted.
Well,
so real quick, several years ago, I went on Crowder's show and I said, I think, I'm pro-choice. There's some limits and blah, blah, blah. And he said, okay, as a conservative, I will accept that you have that position. So I'm willing to compromise 12 weeks. We will say at this point, the baby is viable. We shouldn't have any reason to kill it. Except in medical emergencies. And I was like, I agree with that. That works. And he goes, let's take that compromise. Where's the left? And I'm like, you're right. I completely disagree with them. Instead of trying to win me over or form a compromise, the left says all or nothing. The end result is going to be a coalition of moderate liberals, moderates, traditional liberals, and conservatives forming the larger faction because the left is forcing us to like, they're not giving us a position. They're saying you either agree with us wholeheartedly, join the cult, or else.
Yeah, well, this is interesting. So my feelings on that are a little bit complicated, but I'll add this. I think maybe we're saying the same thing. What Pope St. John Paul II said is that Catholics can accept a compromise on abortion if that's the only option, and it will push things in the direction of abortion stopping. So, for example, if there's legislation that's proposed that says, we will illegalize abortion after this point in time, as we have a lot of these bills now that say after 6 weeks, the Catholic position is no abortion ever, but it's okay for us to support that law if it's the only one available, or to vote for that law if it's the only one available, so that we can eventually get to the point where there are no abortions, because fewer babies dying is better than that law not passing and then many of them dying. But the position can't be like, oh yes, we should have a permanent state of affairs where these abortions are okay and these aren't.
But the simple position is, for the past several years, at least in my experience, the right is playing for the long-term victory. And the left is demanding instant gratification. The right is saying to me, we accept your terms and we'll work towards a better future. I'll take what you're offering. And then in 2 years, we'll try and do it again. In 2 years,
we'll keep pushing until abortion is not legal anywhere.
And now you're seeing people who used to be pro-choice are now pro-life.
Yeah.
Former liberals who used to agree with Democrats are abandoning the position and just saying, like, you know what? I think you've lost your moral argument.
Well, and this is one of those things. So they'll accuse you of being conservative. There are many people on the left who they'll accuse of being conservative who are pro-choice. I mean, I'm sorry, but if you're not pro-life, you're not conservative.
I agree.
It's like the fundamental issue. That really is at bottom which side you're on with respect to basically every cultural issue, at least just in terms of your framework, the way you view the world.
I just am like, in what world is someone who is in any respect pro-choice a conservative person?
You can't be. You literally can't be.
Not a single conservative would accept that. Not a single conservative. Every single conservative I know would be like, that's a liberal position.
Yeah, but I think those words are constantly changing. I just put out a tweet the other day where I said, listen, I'm not calling myself a conservative anymore. I'm not calling myself a libertarian, nothing, because the definitions of these ideologies and the moral standards people are held to be a part of them are changing so quickly. Like my grandma and grandfather, they were weed smoking hippies that thought George Bush did 9/11. A lot of their, we didn't land on the moon. Great people. But they were like hardcore leftists, and I think they'd be considered right wing today. I really do.
Yeah, for sure.
Or they'd be considered some sort of, and I don't
Stalin
know.
would be right wing.
Well, that's the thing.
I don't know what the definition of conservative in 6 months is going to be.
Exactly.
I just don't know.
Well, I remember a time when you had to be conservative in order to be considered far right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now you're far right because you just oppose the left on something.
Right.
Something. That means
I love Dave. Dave Smith's fantastic, and I love how there's like those clips from Fox Business where they're like, "You're a Trump supporter," and he's like, "What?" He's like, I hate Trump. I complain
It's
about
like Trump should be hung for war crimes.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, that
They
doesn't
can't
sound like a
understand.
big fan. You know,
right.
that classic MAGA talking point, Trump should be hung for war crimes. There you go, Dave Smith, like as if he's a Trump supporter.